views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the program host and do not necessarily reflect or represent the views and opinions held by TCN TV Network Incorporated. Due to the social nature of this broadcasting channel, videos may contain content copyrighted by another entity or person. The TCN TV Network claims no rights to the said content. TCN TV Network cannot be held accountable for the copyrighted content. TCN TV Network is a messenger and sharer of information and strives to verify but cannot warrant the accuracy of copyrights or completeness of the information on this program.
And then we expand on them with very. I'll finish off the change by buying gum. Pardon? What? And it took me a while to decipher what he was saying. I came up with we can get better at what we're weak at, and we can even get better at what we're strong at. What makes communication healthy or effective? And Welcome to this edition of What Matters. I am your host, Erica Lita, and today I am here with
Coach Drew,
Andrew L. Blackwood. Selena, I think I did give you a picture of Andrew's book, right? I did include it? Apologies? No, I didn't send it?
Well, we could come back to it. The art of a genuine apology.
Yes, but it's actually a good a good tool to use in relation to this show, right?
Yes.
The art of a genuine apology, because one of the things, so that's how I met Andrew well over a year ago. He came to talk about the art of the genuine apology, and I learned a lot and have continued to do so over this last year and a bit. And today we are talking about conflict hygiene. How to fight fair, how to keep it clean.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I thought would be really, really important, and Andrew could really expand on, is the art of a genuine apology and how much I learned. And so a lot of us think, if you have conflict, you could say sorry and kind of squish it.
Right.
Whether you are or you're not, it's. I think there's shut up words. Yeah, some people say I'm sorry, but the translation really is shut up.
Right, I don't care. Get over it. Let's
Get
move
over
on.
it. Okay, I'm sorry. And they move right along. So
Right.
we're going to touch a bit on that later in the show. It is a whole show in and of itself, because saying I'm sorry is not enough.
Definitely not.
It is not
Sincerity is not enough, because you might be sincere about wanting the person to shut up.
Yes,
Which
you are
is
sincere.
Not really trying to address
The
the
issues.
hurt or the issue, right?
Exactly. So today we're talking about conflict resolution, how to fight fair. And first of all, I think that fighting, arguing, disagreeing is actually a function of any interaction, really, that people will disagree. I remember when
Yes.
I was in elementary school, someone had said to me, it was probably someone in grade 6, and I felt they were very wise. And they shared with me, they said, if you have a friend and you and that friend never disagree, it's not a genuine friendship. And I was horrified. I said, oh my goodness, because I realized that I had a lot of friends I never disagreed with. But I was a kid. But I do remember it really struck me and it stuck with me. And as the years have gone on, you can tell me your take on it, but I believe it to be true that it's not that you have to fight. It's not that you have to have blowout arguments, but I think in any human interaction, no matter how well matched you are, no matter how close you are, there will be things you do not agree on.
Right.
Right?
Right. And, I think depending on the nature of the relationship, the kind of disagreement that you have will differ. Because if you want pizza and I want McDonald's and we're kids and we're going for lunch, I like both McDonald's and I like pizza. So it really doesn't matter to me, but it might matter a little bit, but I'm okay to give that up. So sometimes it's not even about personalities. Because some personalities, they just please and they just give in all the time. But then sometimes the issue really isn't that big.
Right, exactly.
Right?
So there's no, that's what I mean. I don't think that every relationship needs to have battles and big fights.
Right.
But I think that because humans are different, even if you're identical twins, there will be things you don't agree on.
Right.
So this is through all relationships, whether it be romantic, work relationships,
Professional, yeah.
friendships, and so forth. And again, like you said, depending on the conflict, depending on the level of importance to you, you may just say, well, you know what, in your head, I will, that's okay with me. Like, you know what,
Right.
I would have liked this, but I can tell this really means a lot to Andrew. So it means more for him to have pizza than it means to me to have McDonald's, and let's just have the pizza. So I do think that conflict is a natural part of
Yes.
all relationships. Now, how do we deal with it properly? I think first of all, there's some basic rules of engagement, right?
Well, there ought to be.
There ought to be. Okay.
I believe there ought to be. And for some people, like one of the callers, is it Dina? I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name.
Yes, it is Dina.
Dina. She talked about her and her husband having rules basically of engagement. Not everybody has that. They're communication specialists. I think professionally that's what they do. But imagine if we all had rules of engagement.
Would those be considered boundaries?
Yes.
There we go. That's
Yes,
another great
exactly.
thing to have.
They
is
really would.
boundaries.
And they could also dovetail nicely with expectations. But the difference is when we talk about them and make them explicit, then we're in a whole different realm of relating to each other, because most of the times we have boundaries, but we don't talk about them.
Yes, we don't
make
share them. No
clear.
one knows what they are.
Right.
So it's a bit of a guessing game.
Yes.
And people cross them, and then they get this reaction from the other
Yes.
person wondering what's gone wrong. And so being clear about your boundaries. I mean, as you watch this show, and we did a show on expectations as well. Boundaries is a whole other topic as well. But as you go through the show, if you have any new relationships to develop from here out, starting out with some boundaries is, I think, a really great way to avoid a lot of conflict.
right.
You know?
And the way to start to identify them is if there's a should in the statement. Okay, that will highlight what the expectation is.
Okay, give me an example.
Let's talk about you. Let's say we're coming up with rules of engagement.
Okay.
I should always, or I should never.
Aren't we supposed to not use never and always?
But this will highlight what our expectations are.
Right. Those are setting really clear boundaries.
Exactly. And when we start to do that, then we'll realize, okay, this is what's valuable to me. For example, one rule that I think is healthy to be generalized is I should never disrespect you.
Yes. Yes. That's a good never.
Right? I should never disrespect you. So my expectation is that you're not disrespectful to me, and I'm not disrespectful to you.
Right.
But then we move forward to define what is disrespect.
Right, exactly. So different. So that could be a very clear rule from the beginning, but we now have totally different ideas of disrespect, right? Some people, one of the things we're going to be bringing up in fighting fair and having, good exchanges is not name calling.
Exactly.
That's a really big one. However, different people take it differently, right?
Yes.
Some people, you'll hear certain conversations between two other people, and your eyes open up really wide, and you're like, "Wow, this is going bad."
I hear it all
And
the time.
This is how they interact.
All the time.
This is how they speak to one another, and it's for the outside person, you're horrified, but that's how
Yes.
they speak to one another.
Yes.
Other people, even if you say their name in a wrong tone, that's it. It's
Right.
it's
Right.
a
Because
wrap.
some of us are more sensitive than others.
Right.
But you know what I find? I find it starts in jest when people are joking.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they're joking but not joking.
What's that saying? There's a grain of truth in every joke.
And every lie, and yeah,
Something like
there's
that.
always these grains. And, one of the grains that I find when people, one of the statements would be, "Man up," or "Grow up," or "You're so sensitive," or things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Those aren't jokes.
No, they're not.
No, there's something there that they want to say, and they're saying it without being clear.
Yes.
And believe it or not, they're lighting a fire with those statements.
Isn't that being passive aggressive?
Sometimes, because sometimes, put it this way: if it's my culture and it's my belief, I'm not necessarily doing it to bother you. That's just what I believe. But sometimes I might be doing it to bother you without trying to be direct. So if I believe that men shouldn't be sensitive and they shouldn't be bothered by certain things, then when you seem bothered by something that I don't think is that big of a deal, then I'm going to minimize whatever it is you're experiencing, whatever you're thinking, and I'm going to put a label on it and be like, it's not a big deal.
You're being childish. You're being sensitive. When we come back from this break, see, this goes so fast. I don't know how this happens, but when we come back from this break, that's something I want to touch on. Actually, is how cultural standards play into conflict and how people receive the words of others. So when we come back from this break, Andrew and I will be speaking more about keeping it clean, conflict hygiene.
World-famous spiritual astrologer and psychic Pandit Sai is born to serve people. He's an expert on palmistry and horoscope. He can handle all problems and give Vedic solutions for business, job, love, marriage, husband and wife problems, children, personal, and many others, including depression. He also performs pujas to clear all sorts of obstacles. Call Pandit Sai and see changes in your life now. 647-766-1419. Located at 2895 Derry Road, East Mississauga, Airport Road and Derry.
My name is Trish Curling, and I am an online coach, personal trainer, and yoga teacher, and your new host of Shaping Life, which is all about understanding that we have the ability and the control to take charge of our health and wellness. But we can't do it alone, and I can't wait to sit down with the best in the industry. Please tune in every Friday at 1 p.m. live here on the TCN Network.
Welcome back to this episode of What Matters. I'm here today with Coach Drew, and I am Erculita. And today we are talking about keeping it clean, good conflict resolution, how not to be hurtful and difficult, and to actually get your point across. Because I think that's something people lose sight of a lot, why they're arguing, right? They get sidetracked.
Right.
They start out in a disagreement about one thing, and then it goes totally to the side, and they're not even arguing about what the initial conflict was, right?
And it makes sense because most of the times when people feel attacked, whether verbally or whatnot, their character feels like it's getting assassinated. They're no longer really remembering what the focus was. They're now in attack mode or defense mode, right? So if you throw something at me, I'm going to defend what it is that you are saying, but my point might be completely different.
Right. Selena, could you put up that slide? It's on the white background, and it's a few rules about conflict. No name calling, how to fight, Okay, so how to fight fair. Now, most of the ones that I found are based more on romantic relationships, but I think that we can really take this and use it for a lot more than just romantic relationships. So take it private and keep it private. Keep it relevant. We just touched on that. Keep it real. Andrew speaks at length about this, about the difference between the reality of a situation and how we feel about the situation.
Feelings versus facts.
Feelings versus facts. Avoid character assassinations. Pew, pew. Don't
That's
do
the
that.
always and never, right?
Yeah. Remain task-oriented, right? Are we trying to figure out if we're having pizza or McDonald's? So now why are we talking about your mom? Allow your partner to retreat with dignity. I really liked that one. I thought that
I'm wincing at a number of these because I don't disagree. I don't agree with some of them.
No, you
No,
don't?
I don't. But I can see in principle how
Okay,
some of
so
them
tell
are
me
good.
what, Selena, could you just throw it back up for a second, please?
So one,
Mm-hmm.
the remain task oriented.
We were trying to figure out what we were eating. Why are we talking about what my mother said about you years ago?
See, but that's the beauty and the challenge of communication.
Okay.
Just because you don't understand someone doesn't mean that they do not have a point.
I like that.
So there is. I ask people this. I ask couples this all the time.
Okay.
Okay. Do you think your partner is crazy? Most of the time, people say no.
Most of the time.
Most of the times, and they
Most
get a
of
little
the time.
chuckle. But if you know that they're not crazy, then there must be some logical reason why they're upset about something or why they're bringing it up.
Okay.
Now, if you want to stay attending to the fact, that means you're not really open to listening to what it is that they actually have to say, what it is that's actually bothering them.
So, okay. Here we have a different idea. So I'm thinking conflict resolution. We're arguing about this and we need to resolve this. But you're saying this is where now we were going to touch on this, where conflict can lead to, greater intimacy.
Right.
It could lead you to learning about the people. So I'm really surface and Andrew's gone all the way. I'm thinking, let's just solve this problem. And you're saying, but this could give you a better understanding of who this person is.
Definitely.
But if you don't stay centered on the task, won't that be lost?
Not necessarily. So part of the reason why we have a lot of conflict is we don't understand the other person. We don't know where they're coming from. But there are often several things that are being talked about in the single conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So you could be talking about pizza. I could be talking about traditions,
Okay, I see that.
right? I could be talking about when my mom did this for me, right? This is what it meant to me. That's why it's important for me to have this, where you're just like, this is no big deal. It's just pizza. But
Right.
if you don't understand the levels and the depth of what this means to me, you're going to be task oriented and miss the point.
Okay, I get that. So then a huge part of conflict resolution and being able to come to an agreement is one, the ability to express yourself clearly,
Yes.
and then two, the art of listening to understand and not to respond.
That's right.
So, in order to resolve conflict, you would have to listen
Yes.
to actually listen to them.
Right.
And then you would have to express yourself clearly.
Yes.
So, right there, you have two steps. Those are two things that are really important. It's how we deliver the message,
Yes.
and then if the person's actually listening to what we say.
One of the things that most people don't do is make time for the conversation.
And
Right?
now,
So if your time is limited, you may not have the time to get through it, nor will you be patient with the process.
but isn't that a tactic sometimes people use in order to kind of get a result that they want? If you approach the person at the wrong time,
Right.
they may blow it off. Okay, yeah, do whatever, get a pizza. That's
Right.
fine.
Exactly.
Right? So when we do it is really important, and that brings us into this short clip from one of Andrew's videos. Selena, can you clue up that first clip, please?
Quick. Number one, pick the right time to have that discussion. I am a morning person. My wife is not a morning person. Sometimes things just come out of my mouth in the morning, and it's not the best time. I saved myself from an argument simply by saying, okay, if I tell her this thing in the morning, she's going to be thinking about it all day at work, and it's going to set her day off. So I chose a better time. You can end an argument by not starting that discussion at the wrong time. So
Yes.
So-
Pick the right time.
So that was a great tip. That's from your video. What is it called again?
How to end an argument quick.
So how to end an argument quick. We're going to show you 3 clips from that, but that's one, is pick the right time.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Which is hard in family life or most people's lives because there's stress, there's fatigue, there is
Scheduling
like
conflict.
my wife is a morning I'm a morning person, my wife is not. So finding time to make the time can be challenging. But if we don't do that, then it kind of fuels the conversation. And
Right.
it makes it more combative. It makes us less patient and less tolerant, which are things that we benefit from having if we're going to actually listen. I mean, really listen.
So, how do you feel about that statement where somebody says to you, sends you that message, your wife sends you that message in the morning that says, we need to talk? Should we set people up like that?
See, I have issues with language. Okay, so and I don't think it's just a man thing, but I don't like when people tell me what I need to do. I really don't like it. So in that moment, yes, I'm like, what did I do wrong? And two, why are you telling me what I have to do?
Okay.
Right? So already I'm feeling anxious, but I'm already feeling upset.
And he just seems so, like, pleasant.
That's what,
He's like, don't
that's
tell me
people
what to
say
do.
me. That's what people say to me. They like, you get angry? Yeah, I do. And I think it's okay.
It is okay. That
It is
makes
okay.
you. I'm actually very wary of people who claim not to have certain emotions.
Yeah.
I'm wary of that. Oh, I never get angry. Well, when you
Right.
do,
It's gonna be
it's
over.
going to be real bad. So, so that I agree with you. I personally do not like that very loaded. We need to talk. I think that when the opportunity arises for us to sit and talk,
Yeah.
that's when it's like, let's have a conversation.
Or to say, you know what, there's something that's important to me that I want to talk with you about. When would be a good time?
I like that. You see,
Right? It's the language.
same message.
Right? It's same intent, but different packaging.
We need to talk.
Right?
No, we don't. I don't want to talk. You know what? I ain't even going to come home. I'm going to play
Right.
darts.
Exactly. Avoid, right? That's
Then
what-
you go into avoidance. So and again, the clarity of the language. There's something I would like to discuss with you.
Yeah.
When would be a good time for us to talk? Now, anybody out there in the audience, tell me that one statement didn't give you a completely different feeling.
Message,
A
different meaning,
completely
yeah.
different feeling. You received it differently, but the base message is the same. I would like to have a conversation with you at a time that works for both of us.
Right.
So pick a good time. That's really important. When we come back, what was the second step in the video?
I don't remember.
You see, he makes so many. You have to go on his YouTube page, Coach Drew Can.
I got it, Coach Drew Can on YouTube, but I have to select because there's so many different things. You don't
Yeah.
wanna
Oh,
put them all
and there's
in, right?
there's several links I'm going to be putting to go with this video because there were other good ones. But you know what? We only have so much time, and as you can see, we're quickly running through that. So when we come back from the break, we are going to talk about the other two steps to ending an argument quickly, and we're also going to talk about virtual arguments. We have to touch on that because this is an online platform, and I do encourage you to type your comments and so forth, but we also too need to talk about online conflict. So we will be right back after this break.
At Benjamin Law, we understand the real cost of personal injuries. As the victim of an accident, you may be the one who's physically hurt, but your main concern is that your family are the ones who will pay the price. Benjamin Law will be there for you, helping, supporting, and working tirelessly to resolve your personal injury case. Call 1-855-899-4878 or visit benjaminlaw.ca and let our family of lawyers help your family.
Welcome back to this edition of What Matters, and we are talking about conflict resolution, keeping it clean, some conflict hygiene.
Yes.
Now, one of the things why we called it keeping it clean is because have you ever noticed that when people are disagreeing, they get mean?
Mm-hmm.
Nice people get really mean,
Yeah.
and things go from 0 to 100. And now people are calling names and slinging insults and insinuating what people do with their spare time and where they can put comments. And why do people do that? Why do people get mean when they disagree, Andrew?
There could be a number of reasons, but let's just paint a picture.
Okay.
Let's go back to how people are raised generally.
Mm-hmm.
We are raised in environments, for the most part, where you get in trouble when you do something wrong.
Yes.
You are often made to feel silly, stupid, condescended to when you've done something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward that 40 years. That's what you have. When we disagree, I can't afford to be wrong because I'm going to feel stupid. I'm going to be less than you. So what I do is I seek to win. And when I seek to win, I try to dominate. And I try to control the situation. And I make you look and feel small so I don't.
Wow. See, I tell you guys, I learn something new every week with this man. Even when he's not on the show, he's teaching me stuff. So did that not make so much sense? That has explained so many interactions that I've had where I say something, they disagree, and then all of a sudden,
right.
You're like, wow, you called me 6 names, you mentioned my mom, you threw in my kids. It just goes from 0. But that's their way of dominating and staying on top. But then the point is always lost. You are now never
Of course.
talking about what the original topic was.
Right. And I think the worst thing about it is we reinforce that culture and that dynamic where two people can't agree and still be loving and convey value for the other person. And that's what's missing. In relationships, we get into this thing and we're on the same team. We want the same things. But all of a sudden, we have a disagreement. And now we're on opposing teams.
Oh, yeah. Now we're not, I don't even know if we're still married no more. Like, it might be a wrap.
Instantly.
Instantly.
Right? Instantly.
As soon as, and that is something, I mean, you're absolutely right that happens very much in everyday life. And I feel that the online culture has exacerbated that. Where people feel that once they disagree with someone, they can no longer be friends. I see people go to extremes where they're blocking people altogether. Like, you can never interact with me ever again in life because you do not agree with my opinion on this particular thing. They agree on almost everything else, but this, you didn't agree with me, and now we can't be friends. And it's taken very personally, almost as an assault on the whole person. People take that very personally. So I think that that's very interesting what you said about people get mean because of how we're meant to feel when we're small about being wrong, right? And, that makes me even reflect on some parenting techniques and ones that were applied to me and I apply myself. But what do you associate, what feelings do you associate with being wrong?
That's a good question.
Right?
For me, I remember this one instance when I was in university. Okay, I was in seminary, and there was a question that was asked, and I was hesitant to answer the question.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked around, and I saw different people engaging, hands up, bold and strong. And I'm like, why don't I do that? Why am I not that way? Then I realized, wait a sec. I don't want to say something that's wrong. If you think about it, we go to school to learn, which presupposes that you don't know everything.
Exactly. So why are you
Why
ashamed,
am I
afraid
to acknowledge that I don't know something?
This is why I'm in your class.
In a place of learning.
Exactly.
And I was like, no, then I realized, okay, that's where this is coming from. This is all of my stuff. And then I started to engage. Okay, well, it's okay to be wrong. I'll put up my hand. I have something of value. It might not be wrong. It might just be different. And there's something worthwhile. And that idea is changing my life. So I think one of the rules of engagement before we have an argument is we decide how we're going to be with each other. We commit to respecting and valuing each other when we have differences of opinion.
Right.
Like, you can anticipate if you don't anticipate conflict, you're setting yourself up. It is a setup. You will have conflict at some point. So you might as well be intentional about saying, when we have conflict, this is what we're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, that saying is so true. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Yes.
Most people, they spend money getting ready for the wedding and they invest all of this. But how much time do they invest in the marriage?
Yep, I was just talking about that
In
the
the
other
quality
day. Of the marriage. How will we deal with conflict? Where, and sometimes you'll see people married and then these things come up and here I am on the outside of it going, you guys didn't discuss that before? Like, at all? Like, that never occurred?
See, but here's part of the interesting thing about expectations. One of the expectations is we expect people to think like we do.
Yes.
We expect people to feel the same way we do.
We look at the world through our own lens. We measure everything by our own measure. And especially when when talking about romantic relationships or even great friendships, where you feel this synergy with the person in this clique, there's this assumption that they think like me, they feel like me. And so obviously we're going to live in the mountains. And obviously, right? And so when the person's like, no, I like the beach, I thought we were, and then they start to think that maybe there's something wrong with their relationship. Now it's called being two separate human beings, two separate people. Selena, can you pull up the second clip of that video, please? Step 2.
Number 2, literally demonstrate that you've heard what somebody said.
And it goes a little something like this.
Okay, this is what I'm hearing you say to me. Did I get that right? Okay, this is what I'm hearing you say to me. Did I get that right? We actually don't do that. We don't do that. We don't do that well. Many times you can clarify a situation. It's really that simple sometimes.
It is really that simple.
It really, and again, assumptions. And from back in the Benny Hill days, if you may assume, and they divided up the word, and it doesn't work out. So you're absolutely right. And interestingly enough, I do that. Where someone's, and I'm like, okay, are you saying that? And I will tell them what it is that I'm getting out of what they're saying. And what's really interesting is when you do that, sometimes a person's like, no, that is not what I'm saying to you. So you were about to have an argument, not even over the same thing.
Right. And it works virtually as well.
Yes.
Right? If somebody says something to you, your initial response is not necessarily wrong, but there's a difference between reacting and responding. When you react, it's reflex.
Yes.
There's no real thought or time given to it, consideration or clarification. But when you respond, you step back and be like, this is how I'm feeling because this is how I'm perceiving the situation. Let me suspend this for a moment and clarify.
Yeah, let's think about this for a second.
Ask the person, is this what you meant? Because this is what I'm hearing you say. Is that what you meant to convey to me?
Yes.
And if they say yes, that's exactly it.
Then you can
put those feelings on and do what you will, right? But most of the time they'll be like, no, like you said,
that's not what I meant. And I've actually had an interaction like that recently online where I asked a question and the lady came back and she said, are you being facetious? And I was like, no, I meant it. I meant the question just like I wrote it. She was like, okay. And then she addressed what because she really wanted to know, were you speaking in sarcasm or were you serious? And I was like, no, I was serious. I really want to know. Like, this is something I don't know, and so I'm asking you, why is this like this? And then she proceeded to answer the question. So clarification is huge. We often are arguing, and we're not even arguing over the same thing. And I know it's happened to me several times where after the fact, you realize that, wait, you didn't mean this, and you had a whole argument about something, and you guys weren't even on the same page.
And, part of the not arguing about the same thing is sometimes we can even become aware that there are two different things we're arguing about, but we don't decide who gets to be heard first. We're both trying to argue our point, even if it's about different things. Well, this is what's important to me. Well, this is what's important to me. Well, you can't work through them both at the same time, so pick one.
So that takes me back to my original stay on task. Because, you see, I understand exactly, no, I understand what you're saying. I take out the exactly because I don't know about all that, but I understand what you're saying. However, if we're having a disagreement
Yes.
about this thing, and then I realize like there's a whole other thing unfolding,
Right.
don't we still have to deal with this thing?
We get to decide which thing to deal with.
Once we both know we have different things to deal with.
Precisely.
Aha, see? Look, conflict resolution.
Right?
Right there. Right
Because-
there.
Right. Sometimes people are they're beeline, they're so committed to their point, their perspective, their task, that there's no room to acknowledge the other person has something of value that they want to address as well. So you can put this on pause with the clarification. What I'm hearing you say is this. Okay, that's a little bit different than what I'm trying to address. So let's decide what we're going to, prioritize.
Exactly.
Right.
These are really adult conversations, and what I realize is that there are a lot of adults that aren't used to having adult
But
conversations.
we're not taught how to do this.
And that's why we're here.
Right? This is stuff that really matters.
Yes.
There was a commercial earlier.
We have to go to break.
Okay.
Okay, keep that thought. There was a commercial for, and now we're going to have a commercial. We'll be right back.
My name is Trish Curling, and I am an online coach, personal trainer, and yoga teacher, and your new host of Shaping Life, which is all about understanding that we have the ability and the control to take charge of our health and wellness. But we can't do it alone, and I can't wait to sit down with the best in the industry. Please tune in every Friday at 1 p.m. live here on the TCN Network.
Welcome back, and we are wrapping up conflict resolution, how to fight fair, conflict hygiene.
Yes.
And before the break, Andrew started to say, so.
Yeah, we played that commercial again, the Caribbean Network for Children. You know, that's why we're having these conversations, not just to help adults learn to navigate these things, but the better we do in this generation will impact and inform the next generation.
Yes.
So my children, there's an expectation that we're working through, because I still got some generational stuff that I'm working out. They know that their voices have value.
Right.
They know that they have worth, even if they're wrong about something. Or even if I can be wrong, I'm an adult. I can be humble enough to go back and say, okay, this is where I went wrong. This is my part. I'm going to take responsibility for that. So we talked a little bit about the art of a genuine apology, and it features all those things that are woven in, like the 5 values: empathy, humility, accountability, responsibility, and vulnerability. These are aspects of healthy communication. When they're woven into conflict, it makes it obvious that the other person has not lost their value.
Yes, and Andrew, please make this point. When I brought up this topic to Andrew, and we were first talking about it on the phone, I might just start using our phone calls as part of the show because they're so brilliant. But he said that, like, why do people get mean when they have conflict? And one of the things that happens is that we start to treat the whole person.
Yes.
All of them, every part of them, everything we've known, every other conversation, we start to treat that whole person like they have no value. What you're saying is stupid, it's dumb, and so then it translates to you're stupid, you're dumb.
Yes,
And who
name
raised
calling,
you? Your
right.
mama was probably dumb. You know,
Right.
know how to manage differences. It's the key to success in a relationship. Disagreements don't sink relationship. Name calling does. Learn how to handle negative feelings that are unavoidable byproducts of the differences between two people. It's unavoidable. Stonewalling or avoiding conflicts is not managing them. And I think that one there, any disagreements with this one?
Well,
Hey, love him.
I personally don't think I don't think there are negative feelings. I
Okay.
think some feelings are unpleasant to experience,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not bad. If I feel sad because somebody I know and love died, that's not a bad feeling. It's unpleasant, but it's perfectly appropriate. It makes sense.
Right.
If you steal something from me, I'm going to feel hurt. I'm going to feel angry. And it doesn't matter who you are. You tell me I shouldn't feel that way. That doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
I will feel how I feel. However, just because it's an unpleasant experience for me doesn't mean that it is bad. And that's another reason why people avoid conflict, because it's unpleasant. It's hard to tolerate those emotions, but it doesn't mean that it's bad.
I really like that. Again, just learning and absorbing that, and I like that. I think that's part of the, you have some of these gurus, and it's rah 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 positivity. Everything's good. If you have negative feelings, you shove them aside and you keep going, and you're a whole person. You're a full person, and sometimes you aren't in a good mood. And I believe in the timed pity party. I really do. I think we all are deserving of throwing our own pity parties, you know?
It's self-care.
It's-
When you're an
yeah.
authentic person, you can validate your own experience.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another thing that happens when there's conflict. We're waiting for the other person to validate our experience. So on one level, we're relational beings, so it's important that there is respect and there's value. However, if I don't validate my own perspective and I'm leaving that for you to do, if you don't do that for me, I'm already in the hole. I'm worthless already. And if I'm looking to you for my worth, that's setting up this dynamic where there's so much pressure where you have to agree with me.
Right.
Right? But if I know in and of myself I'm a person of worth, whether I'm wrong or I'm right, I've got value to me and I raise something, you can disagree with it if you want. How you disagree with it is what I will find fault with.
Right.
But the fact that you disagree, that's okay.
That's okay, exactly. And
That's okay.
that's kind of how I feel about it too. I mean, I think most people like to be right. I think we like to be
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
I don't think that that's abnormal. You want to be right, but I also because I learned so much from being wrong, right? I learned so much from not knowing and not understanding or thinking a certain way and then being informed or schooled or given an opinion. And so I personally, me as a person, I really don't have much issue with not being right. If you ask my son, he'll tell you different. But I don't have much issue with not being right because I learned so much. But you're absolutely right. How it is brought to you can make you feel very defensive, especially now if you've attacked my base intelligence. You know,
Right.
I'm not knowledgeable about this, but now you're questioning if I have any sense at all, and so now I'm not learning anymore. I'm not accepting anymore. I'm shutting. You know, the eyes are narrow, and it's like what, right? You're ready.
Right. It's because we often equate money with worth. We equate intelligence with worth. We equate skills and fitness with worth. All of these things are parts of who we are as people, but they don't determine our worth. When children are born, we love them.
Yes.
Not because they've done anything, just because they are here.
Right.
They have inherent value, but some way along the journey, we lose that idea, and then people have to prove their
Yeah,
worth
they
to
have to
us.
start paying it in, and you have to be of value in some way. And I love that. I love that. It's not an analogy. It's an observation that you have a baby, and when you think about it, they're really just expensive. they cost you.
Yeah, they
but
take,
you
they take,
just
they take.
love them. And then as we get older, it's like, well, how much do you make, and where do you? And what's very interesting, a few people have said they found that interesting about me is that there are a lot of basic questions I don't ask people upon meeting them, like what they do, how old they are. They don't matter to me very much. I spend a lot of time listening to people upon meeting them, and that kind of has me gauge, to me, who you are.
Right.
Your title, your job title, and so forth. I actually find it fun to learn afterwards because once you've met the person, you've learned, and then it's like, you do that? So it's often very interesting. Try it one day. Try working backwards. So before we go, let's play the last part of that video, Selena.
Number 3, this is my favorite one of all, actually trying to understand their perspective. When you literally try to understand, not assume that you know exactly what they're talking about, but when you try to understand where they're coming from, things actually start to make sense. That doesn't mean you have to agree. You can validate and not agree. But when you validate, the other person feels heard, and it makes the world of difference. I've seen it end so many arguments because sometimes, we can be wrong. When you take the time to try to understand somebody's perspective, sometimes that brings clarity.
Yeah. So I think often it brings clarity, more often than not.
To even our own perspectives. Again,
Exactly. Learning okay, my whole thing is about thinking about why you think the way you think. If you do that, it could change so much. Why do you, like, when you sat in that class and you didn't want to put up your hand, and Andrew took a moment, he's like, why am I doing this? What's going on? These people are asking questions. I'm not asking questions. Why do I feel this way? And that's something that I feel we really need to do as people. We have to start, when we react, stop and ask, why am I doing this? Why am I reacting this way? Why do I feel so strongly or so, intensely about this thing? Why is it so important to me? And I think it helps clarify our own position. So by understanding others, understanding where other people come from, sometimes all it does is reinforce to me that, yeah, that is exactly what I think. I hear what you're saying, and I totally get your point, but I don't agree. So I think it also adds clarity there. You don't lose anything from listening to the perspectives of others. You can only gain.
but some people are afraid of that. They're afraid to listen to the other perspective because it may shift their own.
You think people are afraid to have their
I've-
perspective?
Yes, I see it happen.
Really?
Yeah.
What's scary about that?
Well, if you come from an experience where your opinion doesn't matter, or even if you are very open to different ideas, it's very easy to be persuaded and moved off of your point. So some people don't want that. They're not going to be open because they want to hold their ground, and there's some value to that.
Okay.
Right. So again, it's about making room to really understand the other person, where they're coming, understand their history, understand what it is that's important about this moment and this conversation. I mean, when we talk about hygiene, conflict hygiene, I think it's important to look beyond just this conversation. What is the tone we want for our relationship? What is the tone we want for our family? What is the tone we want for our community? What is the tone we want for the world? It is.
Yeah.
It's
It-
that
it
significant.
really, yeah, it really, really does. You are the building block. The individual is the smallest part of society. The family, to me, is the first stone, and then that's how we build out. And how you speak to yourself,
Yeah.
then will be how you speak to your spouse, will be how you speak to your children. And then there's a culture, how you have company cultures, well, you have home cultures,
Yes.
and so forth. So that really, like you said, it changes the world. Wow, Andrew, that's really profound. That this is a clip, Selena, that I want. That clip right there, how we speak to ourselves, it ends up translating to the tone that's given to the world. And I think that, in summary, conflict resolution, keeping it clean, involves clear communication
Yes.
and
Respectful communication. Communication where we value the other person and we demonstrate that. We're conveying worth to the other person. Uh, conflict hygiene, keeping it clean. Again, that proverb, do unto others
as you wish them
as
to
you would have them
do.
do unto you. But the reality is sometimes that isn't even helpful, because if our sense of self-worth is so impoverished that we don't value ourselves, then we will expect poor treatment and we will give poor treatment.
So that last part might indicate to you why some people, you have a very difficult time interacting with them. And I hope that gave you a lot to reflect on. It definitely gave me a lot to reflect on. I'm actually going home to watch my own show again. So Andrew, as
gonna watch it too.
always,
Yeah.
there was some really good points in there, and I would love to hear back from you. Please drop a comment, whether you're watching this live or on the replay. You can send myself or Andrew messages on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube, and you can comment on this video. And you will see us again soon with another awesome self-help topic. That's what we're here for. We want to help change how you interact with yourself and therefore how you interact with the world. Thank you so much for joining us here on What Matters, and I will see you next week.